Excited to get back on the field this week. It's been, I think, a very, very productive bye week. Very pleased with how our team, our staff, just really the program as a whole attacked the bye week. We set out a plan Monday for things that we wanted to accomplish throughout the week. Thought the staff did a great job putting together the plan, and then the players really responded. We had several great practices and then had a chance to get our guys out of town here this weekend, get coaches on the road recruiting, and then most importantly get our players away from it. You know, we've been going at it here pretty good for a while, and so I think the guys had a chance to get home, get away, refresh, recharge, and get ready for this stretch run. So it's good to see them back in town last night. They were excited to be back, energized, focused. Know the challenge that we have upcoming here with going down to Fort Worth to play TCU, a very good football team. We all know the history of that game here over the last few years. They've all been pretty tight games, very competitive games. Gary's obviously one of the top coaches in the country. Of extremely talented team, skill position wise. I don't know that we've faced a team that has the quality of skill players that this group does. You talk about one of the most dynamic return guys in the country, and Cavante Turpin. I wish he'd hurry up and graduate. He's pretty special, fun to watch. And then obviously the receivers, the backs. I mean, they're just loaded with very, very good skill talent. The biggest thing you see with them is team speed. I mean, it's always been good. TCU teams have always been fast, and this group is certainly no different. So playing very well defensively as they always do. They always tend to find themselves, at the top of the, Big 12 and national rankings. This year's no different. They're playing extremely well. Two of the best defensive ends that we'll see all year will be on the field Saturday. Our team knows the challenge. They know what kind of program TCU is. Again, they have a lot of respect for them, the kind of games that we've had with them, how difficult it is to go win in Fort Worth. But our focus, honestly, right now, especially through the bye week, has not been as much TCU. It's been more about us, finding ways that we can get better. And again, I feel great about the way our guys prepared throughout the bye week, and I know they're very excited to get down to Fort Worth and play this one.
Al here today, but John had a question about that.
Yeah, Lincoln, you get a couple days off, you have the open day, a weekend off, and then you have a new voice as the defensive coordinator. Do you see a new energy? I know you talked about kind of revitalized, but is there a new energy or guys' new focus, or how would you say they're approaching the back half of the season?
Yeah, they had a good mentality all week. Where does that stem from? Probably a little bit of all of it. I think for us, it's just about kind of chasing and fighting to get to a point where we can play the way that we know we're capable of, and doing it more consistently. And so I think everybody's got that sense of urgency. Does the new voice help? Probably some. Is part of it just having not played to the level that we want to play defensively, and the challenge of putting in the work to get to that point. I think there's some inner challenges happening too, and there better be. So I thought we responded great. I thought the staff, came together with a little bit different, obviously different setup now, and really organized, really working well together. And our players had a good week of practice. So it's just a start. It's going to be a process. Obviously, a big a very important part of it here, this first game against TCU, to gain some momentum there. But I think our players have had a good mindset, and they've rallied behind the staff and behind our leaders.
Jason Kersey.
Lincoln, last week, Mike Stoops said that he had trouble sometimes connecting with the players in terms of his approach to coaching. Does coaching today's players require a different, maybe more delicate approach than in the past?
Oh, man, it's such a broad question. I mean, there's probably times for both. I think delicate's not always the answer, I don't think, for anybody, but certainly being able to connect and have relationships with them is part of it. And part of it, let's be real too, part of it comes down to just success on the field and the confidence that breeds, players being able to really understand what you're talking about, really, and also being able to see, if I do this, here's the results that follow with that. So I think as coaches, we all kind of face our own challenges that way. I mean, it is, players are different now. I mean, there's no question about it. And, we all kind of have the inner battle of, maybe what we were taught when we were players, how we went through it versus how it is now, and how much do you adapt? How much do you stay true to kind of your core values and the things that you believe in? I mean, I would guess that every coach out there, if they're being truly honest with you, fights that some. I do. I know Mike said it publicly that he did, which I thought was very open and honest. I do too. I think every coach does a little bit this day and age.
Lincoln, this is obviously an incredibly tough decision for you. When you made that decision, as you thought through it, where do you feel like you can get this defense to? I mean, how much better do you feel like it can play?
I think we can play a lot better. I do. And again, I think we've seen, in the last several years, we've seen bits and pieces. We've seen flashes. We've had some just outstanding individual games. I want us to get to the level where we can play like that more consistently. And so, yeah, no, like we said last week, it was a tough decision, but it's done, it's passed. Our players have moved on, we've moved on, and excited about this week.
Right, Kerry Marnock.
You mentioned last week it's sometimes a very small difference between success and failure, even on the offensive side. Defensively, you guys haven't given up the big play maybe like you did a year ago, but you just had trouble getting off the field. How much is it just mental and a confidence thing, like you mentioned, you think?
There's definitely some of that. Once you start, getting some of those stops and getting some momentum, you play better. The other team presses. I mean, how you open the question is very true. It is such a fine line, and there's so many things that we have done well. Like I said this morning on the teleconference, it's not like the sky's falling. I mean, we're not far off. We weren't far off with Mike running it. I don't think we're far off with the changes we made now, but we're all fighting to just kind of get over that hump right now. And so we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, it's very clear to all of us within those walls, and very clear that, if we can just, make us strides in a few key areas, that we can be a very good defense and be a championship defense like we've been the last several years. So, that's what we're fighting for right now.
Ryan Aber.
Lincoln, Kyler hasn't lost much as a starting quarterback, going a long way back. What have you seen, though? And he talked about how quiet he was after the game, the way he reacted personally. What have you seen about the way he's handled it from a leadership perspective over the last week?
Yeah, he took it really hard. He did, but most of the really good ones I've been around do. And so, yeah, he hasn't experienced that a whole lot in his life, but that's, at the end of the day, even a guy like him, you're not going to win them all. And so I think he's had a good approach. I think for him it was, like all of our team, there's, you got to get past that one, and that took a day or two. But I think there was kind of a renewed focus. I think he's excited about some of the things that he's done and that we're doing offensively. And then I think also, for us, it was a chance to kind of step back and look at the first half of the season and not just gauge from the previous game, but look back at the first 6 games and what have we done well, what do we need to get better at. And I think we're all excited about, his progress and the fact that even though he's done a lot of good things, there's so many things that he can improve on that are within his control that we feel like we made some strides on last week and feel like we'll be better here in the second half than we were in the first half.
Okay, next was Tyler Palmatier.
Do you remember, with Bob Diaco on the field now, what have practices been like, and are you getting the sense that he was really anxious to get back on the field and really engaging players?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I mean, he's a very eager guy. It's almost like he's been chained up a little bit. He's been great in the office with the roles that he's been allowed to do by NCAA rules, and he's always wanted more and trying to find ways to, no matter how big or small the job was, trying to find ways just to help us, and he's been very helpful. So I know he didn't want it to happen, obviously, in this manner, but he's certainly excited to be out there. He's very energetic, brings a lot of just really good vibes to the practice, and then obviously extremely knowledgeable too. So he's been a big part of, and obviously Ruffin in his role, and the rest of our defensive coaches of that group's kind of had to come together quickly. Bob in a new role, Ruffin in a new role, the new voice in that room. It's, not just for the players, but just the staff. It's those guys being able to work well together is very, very key, and I think they've done a great job up to this point.
As a follow-up to that, what would you say Bob Diaco's defining characteristic is?
Yeah, I don't know if there's one. I mean, he's very, very passionate about the game. I mean, you can see that, you can sense that from the way he approaches it. He's very, very detailed, and he's smart. I mean, he gets it. He understands the game. He's been through a lot in his career. He's worn a lot of different hats, so his experiences certainly help us right now.
Barry Trammell.
Yeah, Lincoln, wild Saturday. 3 top 10 teams lose, 3 others almost lost.
Right.
You guys are actually now back in the middle of maybe you probably never left it, but you're back in the middle of the playoff hunt. Is that one reason you made the change you did, because you felt that, hey, this team can still achieve its highest goal and just need to instigate something to facilitate that?
That was in my mind, but I don't know, had I not felt that way, would I have done it differently? That's a little hard to answer. I certainly left the Texas game feeling like, that we didn't play anywhere near our capability, with a lot of disappointment for that. But I also left it feeling like this team can accomplish anything they want to. And so, I think a game like that really caused you to look back in the mirror and make sure, hey, we've got what we need here. Let's make sure we're all doing our part, and anything we need to adjust or tweak to make sure this team plays at optimum level, we've got to be willing to do that. And so, I've had a lot of confidence in this team, as you guys know, from the off season on, and I would say that's done nothing but grow as this season's went on. I mean, I think, we're capable of a lot. We got a long ways to go to get there. This week will be a big step here, but I don't think there's anything that this team can't accomplish.
Yeah, Coach, a lot of times when there's a change in leadership at the top, player leadership also becomes important to help with that transition and smooth things out. Who have you seen on that defensive side that stepped forward and helped with the transition?
Yeah, I think it'd honestly be a little tough to single people out, because it's one of those situations where, kind of like what I just said, everybody's got to look in the mirror, and everybody has to step up. And so, I mean, we've got our, we know, kind of who our defensive leaders are, the guys up front, Kenneth Murray, Bolton, Trey Norwood, all those guys. I mean, we know who those guys are, but I mean, this is one of those challenges that everybody gets challenged here. Everybody has to step up. It's not just the 2 guys that are team captains or the, other 3 or 4 that are recognized as team leaders. I mean, everybody's got to be willing to, look at it and say, what can I do better? And so I saw a start of that last week, and that needs to continue.
Kind of off Barry's question a little bit, this team has lost early season games and then rallied to find a playoff spot. I know you're taking things week to week, but is there something in the back of their players' heads that say, this can be accomplished that it has been before?
Yeah, a lot of these guys were a part of that, and it's 2 things. I mean, it's good to have the confidence and the belief that you can, which we certainly have that. But I think also those guys, which is good for our players that haven't been here, can explain to them how hard it was. It's hard. I mean, it's regardless of what happened last week. I mean, going to Fort Worth and playing the Gary Patterson coach team, it's hard to beat them there. And we got plenty of other challenges on down the line after that. So there's going to be a lot of challenges. There'll be more adverse moments, more things this team's going to have to go through. But I know that the belief and confidence that we can get it done is there.
In the back right.
Yeah, hey Lincoln, the last 3 years, a few times you guys did have a setback. People's attention almost automatically zeroed in on Baker. what's he going to do? How's he going to especially respond? He had a really unique place on the team, I realize, and I'm not suggesting Kyler needs to be Baker in response to what happened against Texas, but do you at the same time anticipate people being especially curious as to how he responds at TCU this Saturday?
They probably will, just because he plays quarterback and he plays quarterback at Oklahoma. You know, as far as response to adversity, I mean, I saw, you know, what I saw the second half of that Texas game, in the fourth quarter in particular, was a pretty good response too. So I think, you know, he's going to continue to grow. You know, he's still, in so many ways, young and inexperienced, you know, and is still learning, but obviously doing so many things well too. So, you know, he's got to approach this just like he did the beginning of the season when everybody wanted to talk about replacing Baker and blah, blah, blah. He was himself, and he got better and better, and he needs to keep doing the same. If he does, then, you know, I'm as confident in his abilities and the way he's playing as any player in the country right now.
Obviously, every year's different, but you guys haven't lost back-to-back games since you've been here. What's kind of been the constant in being able to bounce back and win those next games?
Yeah, I think first it's belief. You know, even when something doesn't go your way, you gotta have that self-belief, that inner belief, both individually and as a team, that you can bounce back. I think it's, you know, everybody taking ownership in it. You know, which I think has always been a big key. And then I think too, it just comes down to the fight of your team. You know, it's, you know, when, you know, something doesn't go well, something negative happens, you know, just how bad do you want it? You know, how important is it to you, to this program, to get back on track and play the way that we know we're all capable of. So it takes a lot. It's challenging, but it's also one of the most rewarding things, and as a coach, I know something I've always looked forward to. You never want to have losses. You don't want to have to deal with it much, and we haven't had to, but how your team responds from that says a lot about where you are as a program.
You know, in mid-season, like 5, 6, 7 games, you don't see a lot of coordinator changes. Mm-hmm. When you see them in mid-season, it's early season usually. But it happened with you guys. It also happened at Kansas last week. Have you talked to your brother and compared notes on how the transition goes and ways to make it better and those kinds of things?
No, I hadn't compared notes, just checked in with each other. You know, we both know how difficult that thing is. So, no, it's different. It's not by the book, and I certainly get that part of it. But I just felt like it was something that, you know, couldn't ignore at this point. You know, that if it was the right time and the best thing for this team, then I didn't want to let any of the other factors, you know, keep me from it. And so, you know, we know what this group's capable of, and we know, you know, I told the guys in the locker room after the Texas game that we all had to look in the mirror. We all had to be willing to do whatever necessary to play the way we're capable of, and that starts with me, you know. And if I'm not willing to do that, whether it's into the season, mid-season, then I'm not doing my job.
Lincoln, with a change like this, is this an opportunity for a fresh start for maybe some guys who either maybe weren't connecting with Mike or who haven't been playing much?
Oh, I don't know with the change necessarily. I mean, we're always going to try to find the best players on the field. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, you've got some coaches in new positions, you know, who may evaluate guys a little bit differently, and that may be part of it. You've got some, you know, traditionally as well, you go into the second half of the season, a lot of times you may have, and we've had several throughout the years, maybe a guy that didn't play much or didn't play any of the first half that has developed and gotten better and better and gotten ready to go, and now he's ready to help this team. So that, in addition to having the bye week and a chance to rep some more of those guys, does potentially give you those opportunities.
Just as a quick follow-up, Buki had a tweet last week that got a lot of attention. I'm just curious if he's one of those guys that maybe needed a fresh start.
No, I think last week was an emotional week, you know, and you know, he put something out there that as he sat there and thought about it, decided he didn't want to do it. He took it down himself. I mean, it was an emotional week. You know, if throughout that whole week all we get is one tweet like that, then we probably did pretty decent.
On the Big 12 call this morning, I was asking around about how Big 12 defenses have evolved, and both Cliff and Gary offered up that that people are playing defenses now that actually slow Big 12 offenses down. And I said I was curious about that. I said, so how do you slow somebody down when they're the one snapping the ball and they're the one wanting to run tempo? And they both pointed to the way Matt Campbell dropped 8. You know, he illustrated perfectly against you guys last year here and slowed you down. You're seeing possessions being limited now. You're seeing plays coming down a little bit, number of plays in a game. How does, when you start preparing and you see teams out there dropping 8, for instance, and they're running various kinds of zone defenses, how does that slow you down when you want to go tempo and you get to the line of scrimmage and you look up and you say, wait a minute, we have to think this through? How does that work?
I don't know that it's slowed us down a whole lot. I mean, honestly, you know, we scored 31 here last year and fumbled going in on the 2-yard line, you know, and didn't feel like we played very good. We played decent up there, you know, a couple weeks back, you know, at Iowa State. So those guys have done a tremendous job defensively. I mean, that's pretty clear. Everybody across the country can see that. I mean, the way they slow you down is they tackle, you know. I mean, they get people on the ground, you know, and they, for the most part, you know, don't give up a ton of big plays. And that's always going to slow you down, whether you're dropping 8 or rushing 8. If you get people on the ground, I mean, that's going to happen. So, you know, has there been some evolving of schemes offensively and defensively, you know, in the last couple of years? Are you seeing more of that? Are you seeing people attack it differently? Sure. But, I mean, there's always trends, you know, and this one, you know, this is kind of the one that the league's in right now. You're seeing a lot of people do that, and obviously Iowa State probably right now does it better than anybody. But is that I don't want to take away the credit from the guys at Iowa State and say, well, just because they're dropping 8, that's slowing the game down. No, they're dropping 8 because they're playing damn good defense. I mean, they blitzed the other night. Did obviously a great job against West Virginia. When they had pressures, the pressures hit. When they dropped 8, they got people on the ground. They're still able to get pressure, rushing 3, covered very well. I mean, they're playing really good, sound, fundamental defense, and that's why people are having a hard time moving it on them.
Quick follow-up for you. Gary said he said that he's never been a coach that liked to rush 3 linemen. He's always had 4. This year, in the last couple of years, he's doing 3. He is dropping 8 because of that evolution. Does that affect the way you go about your business now, knowing that the guy you got coming up is more leaning toward a drop 8 type defense?
You know me on those questions. I mean, I know Gary's evolved just like everybody has, and you know, he's one of the best defensive coordinators, you know, not just now, but that there's ever been, certainly in this league. So, you know, wouldn't expect anything else from him.
You know, staying along the same lines, you know, they held Texas Tech to 17 even in the loss. What is it about what Gary Patterson and TCU does on defense, even with different personnel, that makes them so successful?
Yeah, they got a system that's been in place for so long, and those, you could tell the players know it inside and out. He's done a great job, you could tell, of really zeroing in and recruiting the kind of guys that he wants on that defense. They've always, for a long time, I've thought, been able to project guys that played other positions in high school, really project and done a great job developing players. You know, and in the last couple of years, certainly since I've been back in the league, I mean, they've had some really good players. I mean, they've been really good up front, this year being no exception. They've had a lot of experience, a lot of really good players on the back end. So, you know, you could buy a really good coach that's, you know, a system that's been in place for a long time, players that believe in it, know every single adjustment, and then good players on top of it. You know, it's a pretty good recipe.
Yeah, 3-part question on that same subject. Did you watch TCU Tech live? Were you able to watch it just sort of for enjoyment rather than trying to figure out how to beat TCU? And 3, did you enjoy that kind of game, which is sort of antithesis to what you're able to do with your offenses?
Yeah, I did watch it live. No, not for enjoyment. But yeah, could you appreciate the kind of game that it was? Sure. Just because not every game has to be, 45-40, and that's there was good quality ball played on both sides. I mean, both defenses played at a really high level. Teams were really laying it on the line. So yeah, no, it was fun to watch. I don't, I'm not just partial to always games being high scoring. I mean, I think you can tell when teams are playing at a high level, which especially those two defenses really were, and making things hard on both offenses. So I certainly appreciate how competitive and well played it was.
It was a field position game, and as I was watching it, I got thinking, I hadn't thought of field position in years. I mean, OU doesn't care. OSU hadn't cared. They don't care where they get the ball as long as they get it.
Yeah. No, it was. It was almost old school in a way. So yeah, it was fun to watch. I guess I did. Maybe I lied. Maybe there was some enjoyment.
Lincoln, in terms of recruiting, what do you tell your current commits and potential recruits about the coaching change on defense? How do you reassure them when the future really hasn't settled, won't be settled until after the season ends?
Yeah, we're just honest with them, about, why we made the decision, how we'll handle it going forward. And I think they appreciate that. We've always, been extremely open and honest with our recruits, with their families. I think that's a big part of it. I know I talked about that a little bit last week. And they get, OU is one of the most stable places, and this is one of the most stable situations that you'll find anywhere. But this is also still a very unstable coaching world, and those changes happen from time to time, whether it's a coordinator or whether it's a coach moving on to another place. And so I think they trust how open we've been and trust our judgment with it, and they've been, the response has been very positive.
Lincoln, I was curious, you mentioned the word stable. How long do you think it truly takes to stabilize after the things that happened last week, or have you gotten there, and if you were, how long did that take?
Yeah, I'm counting on about 2 weeks. I don't know how you define that term as far as kind of in this situation. I mean, wouldn't have made the change if I didn't think we would have a chance to play well pretty quickly. So those are certainly my expectations and our expectations. Everybody in there believes we can and will. But also at the same time, are there some new things that we're going to have to work through, or is it a different staff setup, all that? Yes. And, we've got to fight like crazy to work through all those kinks as fast as possible. And then our guys have got to respond the right way. And it takes buy-in, it takes buy-in from the staff. It takes buy-in from each one of those defensive coaches working together, which they have. It takes buy-in from the players. Again, if that gap is so small, and it's, if we'll all buy in, then we'll have a chance to play very well.